Coming up, reuse.
Reuse. Lasers!
Okay, and I have a great interview with the one, the only Loretta Hidalgo Whitesides.
Stay tuned. Tomorrow begins right now.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
Welcome to Tomorrow for March 25th, 2017. This is Orbit 10, Episode 12. My name is Benjamin Higginbotham. I have got a Jared Head next to me and an everyday astronaut sitting in the corner on the holo screen. And we'll be your host for the show. Now, before we get started, I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of the patrons of Tomorrow who've helped to make this specific segment of this episode happen. These are the people who've contributed $10 or more to this episode. To find out how you can help crowdfund all the different shows of Tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. We've got an amazing interview with Loretta Whitesides coming up, so let's get straight into news. First up, we had a launch, a Delta IV Heavy. I'm sorry, that would be impressive.
I wish it was.
It was not a Delta IV Heavy, it was a Delta IV. Delta IV Medium in a 5-4 configuration with WGS-9.
R68A engine ignition, 1. And we have liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Delta IV rocket carrying the WGS-9 mission for the United States Air Force.
That lifted off the pad March 19th at 18 minutes after the new day, Coordinated Universal Times, from Space Launch Complex 37 out of Cape Canaveral, Florida. The 5-4 designation on the Delta IV Medium indicates a 5-meter fairing with 4 solid boosters that will fly off the side. A couple minutes to fly off the side. They're more jettison off the side.
Yeah.
The WGS-9 is the wideband global satcom satellite number 9. It feels a little redundant. It's an information router for space. Basically, it's pinging communication calls, internet calls, and whatnot for the U.S. military. But this one was unique because Canada, Denmark, and the Netherlands, Luxembourg and New Zealand paid for construction of WGS-9 in collaboration with the U.S. military, and as such, each of them, however much they contributed, they're going to get a little piece of that satellite. So it's kind of a shared military ComSat, which is an interesting concept. It's absolutely, you can see the solids kind of burning on the side. We won't have enough time to get all the way to solid deploy, but if you hit up YouTube, search for WGS-9, you can see the whole launch.
It's very pretty.
It's very, very pretty. Speaking of things that we're launching, how about let's talk about Arianespace for a moment, who will not be launching in the near future because French Guiana in South America. Yeah, I'm like, French Guiana, South America, they've got a bunch of people protesting, and it started off with the group, the union that moves the rocket basically from the hangar out to the pad. They basically said, no, we want more wages and whatnot. And then it spiraled into a bunch of other things. Now, the original part of it, I think we have footage of the doohickey if you want. There you go. So this is what I believe is actually some of the protest that was actually occurring right outside one of the roads. Now, there are a bunch of protests going on there, so I'm not sure which one this one is specifically. And it was all in French. So take it all with a grain of salt because I don't read French. Google Translate was my friend. But this is a little bit of what's going on, and this is why Arianespace is not launching right now. They put their current launch on what is considered an indefinite hold until they can get this part of it taken care of. Now, protesters have set up roadblocks across all the roads in French Guiana that lead into the spaceport, the main highway into the spaceport. And the original striking company that was preventing Arianespace from launching actually has said they're okay, and they're helicoptering them in to actually help out with launch preps. But at this point, they're like, nope, look, this isn't a thing. We're not going to be able to do this. So until the protests settle down, this is, Arianespace is grounded for a little bit. Hopefully that won't last too much longer. But yeah, that's why you haven't seen. You saw last week's launch calendar. You saw the launch on the calendar. This is why you haven't seen anything go.
Wow.
Yeah, but on better news, Jared.
Yeah, we've got some very exciting news coming up, which is that SpaceX is getting ready to refly its first reused stage. So I'm super excited about this because this is sort of what SpaceX has been working to and trying to get everything to this moment.
For more than a decade.
For more than a decade, yes, that's right. Now this first stage was originally used in the CRS-8 mission, which you may remember was the first booster to land on a barge at sea. Now the payload is going to be SES-10, built by Airbus Defence and Space. It weighs about 5,300 kilograms, so that's a big old satellite going to geosynchronous transfer orbit. Now the fairing and the second stage are manufactured new, so it's only just the first stage that is actually going to be reused. But the launch is set for no earlier than March 29th at 20:59 Coordinated Universal Time, with a 2.5-hour launch window from Pad 39A. So this is it. This is the moment of truth, I suppose, for what's going on to see whether you can reuse the first stage completely or not. And they will attempt to recover the first stage as well. So,
I'm going to be there.
You are?
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm driving down tomorrow.
You lucky guy.
I know. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
Are you there as press? Where are you going to be?
Yep, I'll be there. I'm shooting for The Observer, so I will be covering his press, and I'm really excited for that.
Nice.
So we'll be
really
at the
cool.
press site, I think, for a little bit. It's kind of new now that they're on 39A. There's kind of some new procedures going on with press stuff. So I don't know. I'm just going to show up and do what I can.
I'm just going to show up and be like, let me on the pad. And they can be like, no.
Excuse me. Hello? I'm here.
In your spacesuit, will you show up in the everyday astronaut pressure suit?
I hear you guys need an astronaut. That's my line.
So speaking of reusing rockets, talk to me about China.
Yeah, so, reusability is super in these days, and so China wants a little piece of that. But they have plans to do it kind of not how SpaceX and not how Blue Origin is doing it. Their plans are to use parachutes and airbags, actually, which I think is interesting. But according to their Chinese researcher, Deng Jinyu, he says that parachutes are controllable and they can be more reliable as well. So it's going to be interesting. This is just an image of a Chinese launch vehicle. It's not the particular vehicle they're talking about trying to reuse. But China makes a new rocket about every 2 weeks, it seems like. So
Not just a new rocket, a new model, a new version of a new rocket. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm sure it'll look similar to this, but it'll probably have some parachutes and stuff like that. Obviously, the big concern here for most people is, the accuracy of parachutes, and I guess just will that work? Obviously that's been studied forever, and most people came to the conclusion that it doesn't really work. But I am 100. Go for it, do it. And I'm excited to see what they end up with. Maybe they'll come up with some really cool system that no one else has thought of, and it'll be groundbreaking. And I'm excited. Anything like this is great. This is great for everybody. So.
I think the big, for those wondering, the reason why a lot of rocket science kind of poo-poo the parachute idea is because you're coming in, you're hitting the atmosphere really hard, but you still don't have quite enough atmosphere for those parachutes to be useful to you. Mm-hmm. So you're in this weird, in-between state where the parachute doesn't do anything for you, but you got enough atmosphere that's starting to rip your vehicle apart. Mm-hmm. That's where parachutes are kind of like, really? But I kind of agree, right? If they can figure out it's all about the velocity of the vehicle and the density of the atmosphere that it's going through, and if they can figure that out, then
Right.
and the rigidity of
maybe perhaps they'll do a little bit of both. Maybe they'll do a little bit of retro-propulsive, firing up in the upper atmosphere to slow down as they re-enter, and then use parachutes for the final little bit. Who knows?
And airbags. Don't forget the airbags.
Yeah.
Space shuttle.
Airbags. Don't forget the airbags.
Space shuttle
Absolutely.
solid rocket boosters used parachutes.
Yeah,
That's
but
right.
they didn't go as high up or as fast, right?
Right, but they didn't deploy the parachutes until 15,000 feet.
Yeah, but again, it's about velocity versus and
Right.
the density of the atmosphere.
But
So that is fair, right? So it all depends, right? So it all depends.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yep.
Yes, and that is a valid point. The solid rocket boosters. Yeah, but they deployed 1 minute into flight? Not even a minute. A little over a minute.
They were
2 minutes.
They were 2 minutes. They
yeah.
ejected 2 minutes out, and
Pretty far. That's
they continued on a parabolic arc,
yeah.
and they free fell.
I should back up so we can
They
see better.
did a free fall until
You can't turn though because the microphone's there. So we get to
They did a
listen to
free
the back
fall.
of his head. Yeah, there we go.
They did a free fall until about 15,000 feet, and then they had a drogue parachute that would
Mm-hmm.
orient them, and then the drogue parachute would pull away, and then they had 3 parachutes that were reefed so that they would have, I think they had 3 reef stages so that they would open gradually. And they were fully deployed about 1,000 feet above the ocean, and they brought them down to
Yeah, so it's not the
nice,
low stuff.
gentle splashdown.
Yeah, it's not. It's not the low stuff. It's the dense, the not quite dense atmosphere and speed. All right, back to what I said. It's the velocity and the density of atmosphere. So we'll see what they do. If it works, awesome. If it doesn't, at least they're trying something.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, they're
That's
trying.
what you're saying. Let's move on to one of my favorite pet topics, which is space-based communication. You've seen me bring on guests talking about space-based communication in the recent shows. That's because I personally believe that space-based communication is very important for us to become a spacefaring civilization. If we're going to go out and we're going to colonize Luna, we're going to colonize Mars, we need to have the internet, because I don't want to be on Mars with no internet access. I need my Netflix, is what I'm saying. And radio-based communication is what we normally use, RF. And NASA is working on an alternate to that, which is optical communication, basically lasers. Laser communication relay demonstration is what you're looking at here. It's LCRD. And the difference between this is obviously it's optical, but the advantage of that is you can fit a lot more data or bandwidth into that optical connection. So right now, it takes a very long time to get data off of our spacecraft from Mars or from anywhere that's above geo orbit. This will potentially help that and increase the speeds 10 to 100 times better than what we're getting with the RF frequencies. So if this sounds like we've already done this test and you're a little bit confused, that's because we did, kind of. We did the Lunar Laser Communications Demonstration, which flew aboard the Lunar Atmosphere and Dust Environment Explorer, which was Lady, in 2013, if you remember that mission from back then. But that mission was more of a short-term demonstration. Does this even work at all? And they were like, yes, it does. So what LCRD is going to do is it's a long-term mission. It's going to go up. It's going to stay there for 2 to 5 years. It's going to have to pinpoint those ground stations you're seeing on the screen right there. It's going to have to maintain precision alignment with those ground stations. Shoot the laser down there. They've got, one in Hawaii and one in, I apologize, I forgot where the other one is.
Table Mountain.
There you go, Table Mountain, California. So it's got 2 ground stations it's going to point at. They need to maintain that precision for 2 to 5 years, and they're going to see, is this a long-term viable plan that we can use for other spacecraft, maybe satellites or even objects going to the moon, Mars, and beyond. So it could be potentially very, very awesome and radically increase the amount of bandwidth from some of these areas.
Yeah.
I'm excited because as JPL sends more and more spacecrafts to Mars, if we had a high-speed link to Mars, maybe we could get like real-time video from one of those orbiters.
That'd be cool.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Like the viewing experiment they have on the space station right now.
High definition Earth viewing, HDEV. But at Mars. Yes, a
That'd be
live
cool.
view of Mars would be awesome, and technology like this is going to enable it. It has not launched yet. It is scheduled to occur in summer of 2019, but they have passed a key decision point review, and they're moving into integration and test stage of the development. So, assuming it continues funding, I see no reason why this wouldn't be a thing that will go up there. And this is an exciting tech test bed that's going up there. That's going to potentially radically change how we see and communicate with the cosmos.
Yeah, I have a quick question about this. Maybe more of a physics question. But now, is a laser actually quicker? Or basically, do RF frequencies operate at about the same physical speed as a laser beam? Aren't they really
that's
close in
correct.
speed of light?
RF.
So the ping won't go.
No,
down
it won't.
or
It's not any
anything,
faster. What it is your frequency, your RF frequency, is going to have a band that kind of bends like this. But that the laser-based frequency, or the optical frequency, I'm saying, is going to have a band like this, right? So it's a very, very narrow beam. And basically, every time you go up and every time you're going up and down, you can cram more bits into that section of the beam. So it's not physically faster. We're still going to have a delay between 7 and 14 minutes, depending upon where Mars are. Mars are. That's good English. Depending upon where Mars is, you'll have a delay between 7 and 14 minutes. That part's not going away. But instead of only having a couple hundred kilobits per second to work with, you could have megabits, gigabits. Probably not gigabits. I was going to say hundreds of megabits.
Lady actually did something like 640 megabits per second from the moon.
Yeah.
So, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
During that test. So.
I'm also curious to see, like with RF, it's going to penetrate clouds and everything else. I don't know what part of the light spectrum they're on for the optical communication. I assume it will be able to penetrate things like weather, but I don't actually know. The other thing you could do is you could get orbiting satellites that are communicating via laser and then space to ground via RF. But as long as we can get these pipelines faster between our planetary objects, our spacecraft, satellites, and Earth, I think that's what's going to enable a whole new slew of really cool things in space. So this is something I'm very excited for, a test bed. It's going forward, and we'll talk about it again in 2019 when it launches.
So they're basically testing FiOS.
They're testing FiOS in space. That's
Yes.
right. That's exactly what they're doing. FiOS in space.
Long-term FiOS.
All right, talk to me about Rosetta.
Okay.
And 67, how's it pronounced again?
Churuyamavgersemenko.
Wow. Right, he's done that before.
Yeah,
I know, right? Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about the Rosetta mission. Even though it ended last year, there's been some amazing results that are still coming out of this mission. And one of those is that there is the active geology that's happening on the surface of the comet. And through imagery that they've been taking of the actual surface of 67P, they've been able to actually witness changes that have been happening in there. So we see things like this. These are cliff sides that have collapsed out due to outbursts from the comet itself. Now, they've announced that they can actually trace some of these outbursts to specific things that happened on the surface. So maybe a crack developed, or like in this case, a cliff actually collapsed out, and it released material which then went away from the comet itself.
I just want to look at the picture. The screen's too far away.
It's very, very cool to be able to see all of that there. And this wasn't the only thing that they saw.
Is that a 3D image?
Kind of. It's kind of a 3D image.
But
And
I
this
mean,
wasn't.
it looks like it has the color extrusion for like you could wear 3D glasses.
Yeah, just a little bit. Now, this wasn't the only stuff that they actually saw. They also saw cracks developing in the surface of the comet as well, which they think at some point in the future may actually cause the comet to split apart. As you notice that 67P kind of looks like a rubber ducky where it's got the head and the body. Well, they're connected by a very thin lobe, so that may actually end up splitting at some point and separating into two different cometary nuclei, which is a very cool thing to say, cometary nuclei. Now this next one is my favorite one because this is actually a boulder that is about half the size of an American football field that got moved.
The official unit of measurement
Yes.
for tomorrow, by the way.
Just making sure.
How many football fields is it? Yeah.
How many football fields is it? It's a half of one. It moved a couple hundred meters during the perihelion swing of this comet. So comets go around the sun. They often will reach a closest point to the sun, which we call perihelion. That's when they get the most active. And man, it was just amazing that we were able to see all of this, especially after Rosetta had to sort of stay away from the comet because the comet got so active that if Rosetta stayed too close to it, it would actually damage the spacecraft. So it had to spend about, I believe it was about 160 kilometers away. Now here's that crack that's developing in the lobe of the comet there. You can see that on the left side there you have the original crack which was seen, and then just about 2 years later there's another crack developing in the surface in that area right there. And as you can see, those are not small cracks. They're about, just about half a kilometer in size. So very, very big.
Is that where the X-wings fly down to blow up the...
Yes, that is actually the thermal exhaust port of the comet.
Okay, I was just checking.
So that's where you fire your torpedoes. So.
It's a quick question then. So the boulder moving around and stuff, what the heck is going on there? Is it because there's so little gravity that...
Yeah.
What's happening?
Basically, what's happening is that the gravity is so low on the surface of the comet that when the material leaves the comet, it can actually push things around on the surface. So you can actually take a boulder that's half the size of a football field because it weighs a ridiculously low amount because the gravity on a comet is like 1/10,000th that of what we have here on Earth. So you could actually physically move that like we saw in the imagery simply just by the force being applied to it from the material outgassing off of the comet. And that's just mind-blowing.
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
That's so cool.
Moving half a football field with outgassing.
Yes. I mean, a lot of us wish we could do that ourselves, but we're unable to. So.
Well, I can.
Okay.
So is that why Rosetta bounced around for so long? Just because it was nothing to grab onto, and there was.
Oh, you mean Philae, the lander?
Philae. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Philae,
So no, Philae bounced around a lot because the systems that were designed to.
It didn't grab on, right? It didn't grab on. But then it was like hours before it actually landed.
Yeah.
Right? It kept going boinky boinky.
Yeah, it bounced 3 times, and it took hours each bounce before it landed again, and that's because of the low gravity of the comet.
So crazy.
Yeah.
All right, talk to me about successful spacewalks.
Yeah, so we had Shane Kimbrough from NASA and Thomas Pesquet from the ESA. They went on a successful little spacewalk, or a little space stroll, as I call it.
A space stroll.
And it was about a space stroll. 6.5 hours they spent out there, starting at 11:24 UTC on Friday, and it concluded at 17:58 UTC. And now this was the 5th spacewalk for Kimbrough, and only the 2nd for Pesquet. But what they were doing up there is they were disconnecting some cables for a pressurized mating adapter number 3, or PMA3, on the station's Tranquility module. Now they're going to move the PMA3 module using the robotic arm, and then you go stick that on another section of the International Space Station. They're making room for the IDA, or International Docking Adapter, that SpaceX and Boeing will be using here in the near future. So they're making room for that, and they're just kind of getting it all set up for that, which is really cool. Yeah, and then they did a few other things, like they lubricated Dexter, the little arm thing, and yeah, they inspected a radiator valve. It just kind of went up, and they did some good work. And this is just the first of 3, so there's going to be 2 more here in the upcoming weeks.
Awesome.
So they're busy.
It's like house maintenance, but in orbit.
And you're like moving entire parts of your house around.
Yeah.
But in orbit.
You got to do that because like your Uncle Larry's visiting, so you got to move the door somewhere else.
You're going to move the door somewhere. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about Yuri's Night 2017. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with awesome expectation, this girl's a fascination. And nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving. Through the heat, keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
Welcome to the second segment of the show. I'm Cariann. I will be interviewing Loretta Hidalgo Whitesides in just a moment. But before I do that, I want to make sure I give a huge shout out to our Patreon members. These people are the Escape Velocity members. These people give us $10 or more for this particular segment of this particular episode. And of course, I also want to say thank you to our Orbital members. These people have given us $5 or more for this particular segment of this particular episode. These people get worldwide free shipping in our swag store, which is really great for pins and mugs and things. And yeah, so that's really great. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it for letting me do these things and more. And if you would like to become a Patreon member, you of course can hit up patreon.com/TMRO. Oh, I keep forgetting Dutta doesn't like me to come off of that slate until I say that part of it. But speaking of mugs, because I happen to have one, they're very handy for those sorts of things. So, Miss Loretta Hidalgo Whitesides of yurisnight.com, or yurisnight.net, I apologize. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It's so awesome to have you. This is, I feel like of all the times that, because tomorrow in Yuri's Night, we kind of talked a little bit, have kind of gone back a ways, back when we were Space Vidcast. And, you know, you and I chat, but I can't remember last time we had you on the show interviewing you for Yuri's Night. So I'm actually super excited about this.
Thank you, Cariann. Yeah, you guys have been great partners. It's been a fun ride.
A totally fun ride. So Yuri's Night, for those people who don't know, is often called the World Space Party. And the sort of general gist of things is Yuri Gagarin's first space flight, the very first human that we got off of this planet, was April 12th, 1961. And then STS-1 was April 12th, 1981. You were born also April 12th. I won't give away any particular year on that one. But I wanted to ask a little bit, like, what was the genesis, what was the concept of Yuri's Night as a world space party? How did you even get to that part?
Well, growing up in the Cold War, you know, I'd always been raised with, like, you know, the Soviet Union and the United States, and we were big super rivals.
Yeah.
And when I found out that we shared a space anniversary, I was like, this is a great opportunity to show how the power of space to bring the world together.
Totally.
And so we started Yuri's Night with the hope of creating a holiday that would be celebrated 10,000 years in the future. And that's something that all the world could agree on.
I love it. And I love that you have such a vision of 10,000 years in the future. It's so amazing. So the concept of the World Space Party and having everybody come together, why focus? I mean, is that why you chose Yuri Gagarin? I mean, besides it being Yuri Gagarin, you know what I'm saying? Like, why choose that? Were you worried that that might be a little divisive?
Absolutely. And we got a lot of pushback in the day from people who worked on the Apollo program, because that was a big part of their motivation, was to beat the Soviets. It was a space race. And so people like Buzz Aldrin would say, Loretta, why are we celebrating this guy? You know, and these are people who, you know, flew fighter aircraft and missions, you know, in the Cold War. So I definitely could appreciate their perspective and respect and understand that. But when we wanted to celebrate was not this Soviet cosmonaut, but this human being. And really that idea of getting people to see him not as a Soviet cosmonaut, but to see him as an emissary of all humanity. And somebody who represented the first steps for us as a species. And I think the reason why I wanted people to make that switch is because it's helpful for us to make that switch in general to relating to anyone on the planet as, hey, fellow Earthling, right on.
Yes.
I'm from Earth too. This is awesome. We're from the same planet. Amazing. Which, you know, when we go into other star systems will be more unique. But right now, I want to make it exciting too on Earth.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Oh, I love it. So the goal of Yuri's Night is not just to have the space party, right? The first one was 2001. We did like a crazy thing together in 2011, having like a 12-hour party that we hit all different kind of parties around the world and everything.
That was fun.
It was so much
fun.
For
the 50th. Yes, oh, that's right. That was really amazing.
Well, I think one of the things
around the planet.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really sort of opened my eyes to it was that I always had thought of Yuri's Night was a World Space Party, was this party, and being able to connect to all these different parties around the world, you got to see that it's not just the party part, although that's tons of fun, but that it's about outreach. And it's about connection, just like you were saying, that everyone had their kind of different parties. And I assume that's, see, some of these are some great pictures. It's so amazing. That Yuri's Night has a bigger goal than just partying, right? Like, can you talk?
Absolutely.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, the goal of Yuri's Night, well, there's a lot, but is to build community and to help people connect over space. Hey, look at that handsome guy.
This is a great picture.
And also to bring together the artists and the musicians together with the scientists and the engineers, because we all grew up like passionate and excited about space, but we don't always get enough access to each other. And we need the artists and the musicians to help create compelling stories and make what we're doing like really accessible to the world and get them excited about it. And they need us because they're like, well, I like rockets too. Can I come see the launch? We're like, oh yeah, let me get you a pass. So it's a team effort, and the Yuri's Night's one of the ways that we help bridge those communities and make magic happen.
That's so great. So Yuri's Night is typically held, of course, on the anniversary of April 12th, or as close to it as possible. I think the one in LA this year is actually held on the 13th. Is that correct?
It'll be on the 8th. So we're doing it on the Saturday night. So it's Saturday, April 8th.
Gotcha.
Saturday before the 12th.
That works. I mean, and a Saturday is really good. 501st around the world have been really amazing, coming to a lot of Yuri's Night events. And I was looking at yurisnight.net, which is the sort of global website. Should you be interested in finding a party near you or starting a party even, there's plenty of time to still do that. And there's a lot of great media with like all these different, like Yuri's Lunch. There's, I was looking at, I had to actually write this down. There were events in zoos, pubs, museums, observatories, just general parks, on the International Space Station, at the South Pole, and in virtual reality. That's just naming a few. Did you ever think it was going to be like this when you first started?
The response has definitely been amazing. And I love the South Pole party. I mean, who doesn't love that?
So
That just
great.
tickles me every time. And getting the International Space Station involved has been really fun. Even Curiosity partied on Mars one year. She was great.
Oh yeah.
But I think the one that got me the most is when Disney Junior's Miles from Tomorrowland show did an entire episode about Yuri's night.
That's
And they
so
did it where
amazing.
Miles goes to his first Yuri's night in space. And I was like, wow, no, this is cool.
Totally. Oh, that's totally great because that reaches like a completely different audience. That's so amazing.
The next generation is already getting trained in how you got to throw a party around the 12th.
I love it. That's so cool. So yurisnight.net was where people.
Wow, that's 2001 photo.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We were digging through some of the archives on some of these things because some of these pictures are it's really great because the website has got just like all different kinds of pictures. There you go. That's the first one too, right? Yep. 2001?
Yep.
And you guys were on MTV for that one, right?
We were. It was super fun. George has the MTV microphone in his hand, and he's sitting on the lunar rover they used for the film From the Earth to the Moon. It's epic.
I love this one. If I remember correctly, this was like Scotland or Denmark. We got this picture from, and this was a thing for kids, and they were doing stuff throughout the whole day. I think there's another picture. I don't know if Tim has already gone through it or not, but they were doing these the launch rockets, like the jumping rockets. That was really cute. So yeah, Stuttgart. I love that. There you go. That's the picture.
There you go. Stomp rocket. She's got some good air there too. That's awesome.
Right? Oh my goodness. I think the thing that touches me the most about Yuri's Night, it's great to be able to go to some sort of party that, for anybody who works inside of the industry, it's always great to just be able to cut loose a little bit. And then anyone who's interested in becoming part of the industry or just making friends or connecting, that it's really great for that sort of thing. But then I love that it also encourages these little kids that are looking for something to do and to be involved somehow, even though, they're just a kid. I think this one's Scotland, actually, if I remember correctly. Oh, it's so great. You have been quoted as saying something along the lines of when you were little and asked what you wanted to be when you grew up, that the job hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah.
Do you think that job that you want to be when you grow up has been invented yet, even?
Oh, that's a great question. No, but I think I'm here to invent it. And, well, I'm starting to invent my own role now. But what I really want to do is help, give a name to what I do,
sure,
and then make it an actual career path, and that people could actually make money and raise families and be space evangelists or space.
I think there was another article.
Yeah,
I think there was another article I read where you said you really just want your title to be Jedi. But you still wanted the payment, to be able to support the family as a Jedi. But I think that's a pretty decent title all the way around. I feel like when people hear that title, when you're like, I'm a space Jedi.
I mean, I'm very fortunate in that I get to create a pretty awesome life. So actually, my title right now is Jedi Trainer. If you look on, my Virgin Galactic email, my signature file, it says, coach, consultant, Jedi trainer. I mean, I might have made it up myself, but it's true.
I like it. I think that's my favorite. That's that's super awesome. So if somebody is interested in either creating another Yuri's Night event near them, whether that be in their basement, at their local pub, a park, a zoo apparently, or an observatory near them, where should they go? What's the first step?
Just go to yurisnight.net. And you can register your event there. It's free. It's just so we can add your dot to the map and show people in your area that they can come to your place for the party. And it's a fabulous way to get involved. It's not too late. You got 2 weeks left, and you can make something cool happen near you.
What are some of the biggest, coolest, most interesting, weirdest parties that you can remember over the years?
That's a great question. So we've had some really cool events. They did a great one down in Huntsville under the Saturn V there at the Marshall Space Center,
nice,
which is fantastic because you get to party under Saturn V. So I thought that was fantastic. The Toronto Science Center, they did a big Yuri's Night in their museum for a few years, I think. They had the DJs and the turntables out in the middle of the Science Museum floor. It's awesome. We've had we had a wedding in South Africa.
No way.
That they did on Yuri's Night with a Yuri's Night theme, and they had a space shuttle shaped wedding cake with sparklers as the main engines.
Oh, I love
that was
it.
pretty epic. And of course, the South Pole parties we mentioned have always been favorites. In Japan, they've done some cool parties. I remember, it was dawn for us. Maybe it must have been night for them. Anyway, but the early years, the Japan parties was the time. They were some of the early ones. That was sort of fun to watch. In Australia, the Powerhouse Museum's done many events for Yuri's Night, and yeah, there's been some. And they did like a tea ceremony in India or something one year. Anyway, oh my gosh, and I would be remiss, Cariann, if I didn't also mention the Yuri's Night Bay Areas, which are of course the most epic Yuri's Night parties ever to exist. So those were at NASA Ames in like 2010 and maybe 2009. I think there were 3 of them in total. And NASA would use one of their big hangars, and it would be like a mix of NASA engineers and scientists like talking about space stuff, and Silicon Valley types and Burning Man artists all coming together to create like a really cool, many thousands of people space rave at NASA. And they had a Buzz Aldrin was there. They had an air show at Yuri's Night. They had aerobatic pilots going around. They had people on stilts. They had all the Burning Man Playa art out on the tarmac. They had Common played, and the Black Eyed Peas and Pharrell was there. That would definitely be the all-time high.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think those are I definitely missed out on one of those. What are the interesting parties that you're super excited about this year that you know of?
Yeah, so we've got a great lineup. If you're in Orlando or Florida, I'm looking at you, Tim. We have an event that just signed up, the Cloak and Blaster in Orlando.
Nice.
It should be pretty fun. We have an event at the Chabot Space Center in Oakland, California. So if you're in the Bay Area, you've got your own party again in the Bay Area at Chabot. And they've got, their DJs lined up, and all space scavenger hunts and all kinds of, and space beer and all kinds of fun stuff. And I'm super excited because we have the first ever Yuri's Night at this year, Smithsonian Air and Space Museum.
Really? Oh, that's awesome.
So, that's been on the bucket list of Yuri's Night for years. And this year, this is what Tim and I love it when this happens, when they just call us out of the blue and they're like, "Hi, this is the Smithsonian. We'd like to throw a Yuri's Night." We're like, fantastic. So we're really delighted to add them to the roster this year. They're having a pairing of space and beer. And so they have the Ninkasi Space Beer that they're offering, along with some really special guests. And so if you're in DC, you're really in luck. You can go. They have very limited tickets, so you got to go and sign up for your Smithsonian Air and Space Yuri's Night.
That sounds incredible.
And then, of course, Yuri's Night LA, which is I'm the hosting here in Los Angeles. We're doing it under the Space Shuttle again at the California Science Center. We're renting out more of the museum this time, so we have more rooms of crazy to go play in. We're going to have Anusha Ansari speaking, the first female private space explorer. We have Rusty Schweikert from Apollo 9, Peter Diamandis, who's made most of the space stuff we do, and a cool lineup of 10 different DJs and full bar all night, and lots of fun planned for Yuri's Night LA.
That's actually
and including a stellarium. Sorry,
no, it's good.
I'm like, oh wait, there's one more thing. We invested this year in creating a 3D LED map of our neighboring stars.
Shut up.
Because everybody knows what planet our planetary neighbors, but we don't know our stellar neighbors.
Yeah.
So we're gonna introduce you to your stellar neighbors, art installation where you can come and hit the control panel, and you can hit Alpha Centauri. Alpha Centauri will blink. It's Alpha Centauri, of course, being the easiest one to identify.
Right.
But like Vega and Bernard Star and about 25 light years. So I'm super excited for that, to like, for those of us who want to be interstellar navigators, you know, start learning your way around neighborhood.
Yeah, totally. It's like Google Maps for stars. I like it. That's so funny. Really quickly, you mentioned Peter Diamandis, and Ben and I have kind of always joked that all these different things, like you said, that are like a Diamandis production. You got the idea for Yuri's Night, or started one of the first Yuri's Nights, or conceptualized for while at International Space University. Is that correct?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
Yuri's Night kind of is a Diamandis production, wouldn't you say?
Completely, because it's also we brought the idea to the Space Generation Forum in Austria, Vienna, Austria in 1999, and that's where I met the people from around the world, these delegates from all these countries who were like, "Wait, we want to throw parties in our countries too."
Totally.
And that's where I met George, who's the co-creator, who came up with the name Yuri's Night, and so without Space Generation Forum wouldn't have happened without Peter as well, like that. So that's another Peter spinoff. So, the founding conference, and then, the ISU where I worked on it as my individual project, and then we launched it. So yeah, Peter's been a patron saint of mine for years and years.
I love it. Oh, that's my favorite thing. We had a couple of comments and questions from the chat room if you're good there.
Sure.
Neuropilot says, has anyone ever done an amateur rocket launch for Yuri's Night?
That's a great question. I can't think of any off the top of my head, although we do have some planned for this year. We have a Yuri's Night Kids event in Los Angeles at the Columbia Memorial Space Center in Downey in the afternoon before the party.
Perfect.
10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we're going to actually have Estes rockets there. And so, not like, maybe when he says amateur rockets, maybe he means like the ones that go to 100,000 feet. Right. I was thinking the Estes kind. But, either way.
They're all amateur.
We're going to have actual lighting fire rockets for the kids, Estes rockets at Downey. But if anyone has any, bigger amateur rockets that they want to launch for Yuri's Night, that'd be awesome. Take a picture.
I love it. Johnny Spacer says, I think it's time for a documentary about Yuri's Night. It would also just make a really good promo.
That's a great idea. I don't think we have anything like that yet.
Yeah, totally.
Right on.
I like it. Interstellar Robo says, can you set up a Minecraft in Yuri's Night?
I don't even know what that means.
All right, we'll just say yes then. How about if you want to have a Minecraft Yuri's Night party, right?
Oh, a Yuri's Night party in Minecraft? Oh, yeah, for sure. We've done them in Second Life, and they're doing one in Nevis or some other online platform. So, yeah, doing one in Minecraft. Very pixelated. Super cool.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm just imagining the Yuri's Night logo in Minecraft.
Right? It's like...
Somebody post that. That'll be great.
That would be epic. I love it. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so if people need to find out more information, yurisnight.net, and then anything else? Am I missing anything?
Yeah, for the Yuri's Night LA, just go to la.yurisnight.net. Anything else?
We do have some ending questions that we like to end all of our lately we would like to end all of our interviews on, if you're okay with that.
Sure, let's do that.
Yeah. All right. So there's no wrong answers, as Ben likes to say, although he's highlighting all of them for me and drives me absolutely bonkers. So thanks for that, Ben. There's no wrong answers. It's just however you feel. So we're good there.
Okay.
The moon or Mars first?
The moon.
Nice. Would you go to space or moon or Mars?
Yes. I already have my suborbital ticket.
Nice.
Yay. And my dream is to go take a retirement pleasure cruise around Saturn. So you guys get working on that.
Nice. Copy that. All right. Somebody write that down. When do you think humans will first land on Mars?
Ooh. So many variables.
Right.
I definitely think it's possible in the next 10 years. I think it's more realistic in the next 20 years. And if we don't do it in the next 30 years, something's gone drastically wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. When do you think humans will set foot on the moon again?
Well, that's a great question. It's interesting because not as many people are talking about that or working on that. But I just think it's so close, 3 light seconds. Come on, that's awesome. It's like right there. It's like the corner store. So I think it's definitely a good place to go. I mean, having spent time at the bottom of the ocean and in the Arctic and other space analogs, like you really appreciate what it is to do operations in a remote environment where you don't have 911, where you can't get airlifted to a hospital. And so I think when you're starting to do really complex, off-world operations, I think it definitely behooves you to make sense to go to the moon first, just to practice, just to get experience, just to learn what you're doing. We haven't been there in my lifetime. I mean,
Yeah.
we got some shit to learn, people. Oh wait, can I swear?
Yeah, we're an internet show. It's fine. And then
definitely get our experience up on the moon on how to do ops, and then let's go for Mars.
I love it. And then why space?
Oh, that's a really important one to me. That's like my soul, my heart and soul. I think we need to go to space as a species because it'll help us grow and help us become the species we've always wanted to be. And I think if you try to justify it on economic grounds or anything else, it's underselling what space could be for us. And I think the only way I can explain to people who don't just feel it innately in their heart, just understand it and grok it themselves, is to say the closest thing to it, explaining it, is that it's like it's the same reason we have children. It doesn't make any sense to have children. They're very difficult and they cost a lot of money, just like space. But we keep doing it anyway. And we do it we don't do it for economic benefits. We don't do it for scientific purposes. We have kids because of it's meaningful and it's something important investment in the species. And I think that's the same reason we do space.
I think that's a lovely way of putting that. Chat room is agreeing. We're getting comments like, your enthusiasm is amazing and very moving, which I would have to agree. Yeah. Thank you, Loretta. I appreciate. All right. Oh my goodness. I have to dry my eyes. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to have comments, questions, concerns, complaints from last week's show. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Close your eyes and picture your favorite city. What do you see? A graceful skyline of towering buildings. Cars and trains bustling everywhere. Crowds of people working, shopping, and visiting, maybe for the first time. Tomorrow sees cities a little differently. We see buildings, but also a thriving ecosystem. We hear the cars, the trains, and envision a better way. We see cities as a place to call home, and as a place worth the journey. Cities with a past and a present, but especially a bright future. Come with us and explore the cities of tomorrow.
And welcome back to Tomorrow. Now, before we get into comments, questions, concerns, and criticisms, is that how you worded it? That was brilliant.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was quite brilliant. It was quite brilliant from our last week's show. I do want to give a shout out to all the patrons of Tomorrow who helped make this specific segment of this episode happen. These are people who've contributed $10 or more. We also have our orbital members. These are people who've contributed $5 or more. And we've got our suborbital people. These are people who contributed $2.50 or more. Yeah, I'm walking around there and you can't see it. And then we've got our ground support crew. These are people who've contributed $1 up to $2.49. To find out how you can get your name in the show and help support all the different shows of Tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. And as you saw in the break, we are spinning up Tomorrow cities. I know, and a lot of people are like, I don't understand how cities relate to space. And actually, it does quite a bit. And before we get into comments, I did want to, I'm very excited for cities. I'm actually, for those who've been around for a long time, part of the reason we renamed from a Space Vidcast to Tomorrow was so we could do other shows because we think there's a lot more going on out there. And you are already space geeks. All of you are space geeks. So finding a show like Tomorrow and a community like Tomorrow is easy and a natural place for you. But we don't want to just get the existing space geeks excited about space because we already agree we should be going to space. We want to get people who don't know they're space geeks yet excited about space. And here's the thing. all things talk to space. All things relate to space in one way or another. The future cities that we're designing right now, some of these very green cities, these cities with next generation transportation on them, all of these things relate to how we're going to build habitats on Mars, how we're going to live on the moon. And a lot of that technology moves back and forth between the two. And so at the center of all of it is tomorrow's space, and then jettisoning out from that will be tomorrow's cities. Later this year we'll have tomorrow's science, tomorrow tech, a bunch of different things where what I'm hoping to do with the Tomorrow platform is get other people who weren't necessarily excited about space into the fold of space through a different mechanism. And so one way or another, it will all relate back to this particular show. So I'm very excited to do that. We're going to have a Patreon chat coming up on April 8th, I believe it is, in place of this show. And we'll be talking a lot more about cities and what you can expect from that particular show. So that'll be premiering April 15th at 19:30 Coordinated Universal Time, which will be right after this show that Saturday. I'm very, very excited. I hope you guys are excited too. It will be rough to get started because it's a brand new show being done in a totally different way. So bear with us as we try to get our footing. But I think it's going to be a really great thing for us. All right, Capcom. Let's get into some criticisms. Actually, I don't think they were really. We do get quite a few, and I like to bring them into the show once in a while. But yeah, I think these were decent comments from this last week.
So last week we talked to Zero to Infinity, and so that's where these comments.
Balloons up, balloons really high, and then rockets from there.
It was boons on boons on boons, is what it felt like.
Balloons. Super balloons.
Donut, muffin. All I remember is donut, muffin.
Yes, donut, muffin. Yeah, but it was like that was perfect, right?
Yeah.
Like then you understood.
It works correctly.
Oh, it made me laugh. Okay, this first comment comes off of YouTube from a 2000 worn Lex to Lion.
Easy to say.
That's what I said. Okay, that's okay. I'm so glad somebody chose this particular comment. It says, what, am I on? I'm on.
No, you're not. I just turned you on.
No, I'm on.
I just turned you on.
Keep going.
This time the Japanese did a countdown. Ichi, ni, san, yon, go, roku, nana, hechi, kyu, jo. Now you can count to 10 in Japanese. Sometimes the Japanese use shi instead of yon for 4, but shi also means death, so it's not often used, like 13 in the US being bad luck.
I think this show is responsible for spreading bad data. And that bad data was that the Japanese counted up instead of down. And I think that was mentioned in a comment, and I think we said it, and we didn't actually validate it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true. I went back after the show, and I don't remember them ever counting up instead of down.
Yeah.
I mean, they might count up after the fact as well, but they absolutely count down to their launch. So I don't think that data is correct. I think they count down and then possibly count up, but I generally don't remember them even counting up. I think they count down to a launch like normal. The big difference between a lot of the launch providers is, do you count down to engine ignition, which on like a solid vehicle doesn't matter, or do you count down to liftoff? On a liquid-based vehicle matters because it's going to be after engine ignition.
Yes.
So I think that was kind of the thing we were talking about at the time. I don't think they count up. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that data on the show was...
They do count up after the launch.
I don't think they always do that.
Well, not always, but sometimes they do.
Yeah,
so.
Okay.
Like +1, +2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
but,
ISRO does that.
Yeah.
So, for pretty much every launch. So.
Yes. Up to 10.
Yes.
They go up to 10, and I think they stop after that, something like that. All right, next up, Capcom.
Comes off of YouTube. This is from Jamie Godman? Not sure. 3.7 billion for SLS/Orion. SLS being the Space Launch System. That's the worst part of NASA's budget. How on earth does it take $3+ billion each year for a rocket that has never flown? It's not like NASA's developing some new propulsion technology or any new tech for that matter. It's just STS with only a same but bigger.
STS was a space transportation system. It was the space shuttle.
Yeah, I was getting there. The Senate launch system is going to cost us taxpayers over $30 billion by the time the rocket ever takes flight.
So, okay, fair comment. It does cost a lot. Allow me to push back a little bit and say it's $3 billion is not just for the rocket. It's for the people to design and the ground systems and rebuilding the pad. I mean, remember, Pad 39B, which is where they're going to launch the Space Launch System from, they've basically gutted 39B, and they're going to have to rebuild it with a mobile launch platform. They're going to have to get all that infrastructure up and running. Ground systems are not cheap or easy, and I would argue potentially harder than the rocket itself.
Yeah.
Because there's just a lot of stuff that happens on the ground systems. You got all the people that need to design the rocket and the ground systems, all the people that need to fly it, all the training that needs to go on. Having said that, if $3 billion is a lot, I don't know.
It's a lot of money.
It's just a lot of money for a rocket.
It's
It's a stupid amount of money for a rocket.
Anybody that's ever done any kind of manufacturing knows that tooling is probably the most expensive portion of your manufacturing process. And if you're going to build one, you need all the tools for it. If you're going to build 30, the cost of the tooling per rocket, it decreases to a point where you hardly notice it. But since they're only building one at the moment, all of that tooling cost has to be paid up front so that they can build the one. And then now that the tooling is there, then they can build over and over and over again inside of the same tools, and it costs much less.
They'll build and fly one. They'll build and fly one. They'll build two. That's my theory. I think they'll fly one of them, and the second one will be partially through production before they're like, no, we don't need this anymore. But we'll see. We'll see. What do you? I mean, you side everyday astronaut. What do you think? Do you disagree, or do you?
I feel like I want it to fly like 3 times because I think that's how many engines actually we have. You know, I'm basing it off of the number of RS-25 main engines that are still in existence, which I believe is 12, or is it 16? So, I mean, divide that by 4, and that's how many rockets I would like to see fly. Like, if we're building this, if we're doing it, like, once we, again, like Dutta said, once we tool it and have it all ready to go,
it's still $1 billion. It's still $1 billion per launch, though.
That's very true.
Yeah, okay, so we don't have to pay for the tooling anymore, but it's still $1 billion.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see other things fly, but at this point, like, I just want stuff to fly, period. I don't really care. I mean, yeah, there's better use of the money, I believe, but I just think it should.
So I'll say I'm 50-50 on this one. So I'm not rooting against the Space Launch System. It's just very, very expensive. And if they could get the cost down, I'd be all for it. Because having a super heavy lift rocket like this is a good thing, right? Having this capability is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But having this capability at $1 billion plus per launch is not okay. There's no point in doing that. You just let the commercial sector take care of it.
Didn't the space shuttle end up being over $1 billion per launch anyway?
Yeah. And I would argue that the space shuttle was the darkest moment in NASA's history, simply because it got us stuck into low Earth orbit for so long. It ruined our ability to go to Mars. It ruined our ability to go to the moon. It was a beautiful and graceful vehicle that was a series of compromises that turned it into this thing that just sucked up money and became a jobs program. And that's probably not a popular opinion. That's okay. Send your hate mail. I know there are people in this room who do not agree with that. Tomorrow.
That's Benjamin at TMRO.tv.
I know.
Ben is a bastard. Tomorrow.
But now that we don't have the shuttle anymore, now we can start looking to do deep space stuff. So, you know, even at $1 billion, Space Launch System still costs potentially less than the shuttle and can do a lot more. But even at that point, you know, again, the commercial industry has stepped up, and they're doing, well, no one's doing what the Space Launch System is right now, but by the time the Space Launch System flies, maybe, because NASA's going slowly too.
Yeah, they're taking their time.
Huntsville, I think, did not see the writing on the wall on this one, but we'll see. So for those who don't know, the manned space program out of NASA, the Space Launch System is pushed down NASA's throat through Huntsville. So the policies are set for that there. It's a good old boys club kind of thing going on. All right, next up.
Next comment comes off of Reddit from Wiz33. It is getting crowded in the small launcher space with this rocket lab and Vector all aiming to launch this or next year. I mean, yeah, I guess a little bit, but the thing is that I think we're not used to hearing about small launchers because we have a human spaceflight kind of focus in general.
Sure.
But the small launchers are launching other things that have become more and more popular, like not even just small satellites, but like the CubeSats and the microsats and the post-it sats and the nanosats and all the other tiny things that could like fill this room. Like, you still need a launcher for those, and anything that's medium or large or anything bigger than that isn't going to be cost effective for them. They need, like, now there's a need for having small launchers and not just like one company doing it, but more than one company doing it. So, I mean, yeah, I guess it's getting crowded, but at the same time, I feel like it's becoming more and more necessary than it now more than ever than it has before. So I don't know that it's necessarily crowded in a bad way. All ships rise to the tide, and I think the more people you can get to, the more taxis are available, the more people can get to more places, right? Like, so the more small launches we have, then the more experiments that schools can do, or Boy Scout troops can do, or you can do. I think the more the better, honestly.
Yeah.
I think one of two things is going to happen. One, they're all going to get used because the market has pent up demand for something like this. So all these launchers are going to get, like, we may even see more companies doing small sat launchers. Or two, the competition is going to drive a bunch of them to merge and go out of business. And I actually have no idea which one it's going to be.
Yeah. It can go either way.
It could be three. This is not the first time we've seen a new space kind of resurgence or new space era upon us. That happened before with like companies like Beale Aerospace, and none of them survived. So that is a possibility as well, but I think that one's much less likely at this juncture in humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next comment comes off of YouTube from Hans.
We all agree.
We're all like,
Yeah,
okay.
I can't argue with that. It's good.
Hans611 off of YouTube says, lol. U.S. tech companies have no problem sponsoring migrants. That's how I got here. The U.S. has been sucking the world's minds for years. I think like taking them in, not like sucking them. Okay. Legal immigration of educated, skilled workers has never been an issue, like this company in Spain. All EU workers and highly qualified.
I don't know what that's in reference to.
One of the questions that came across for Jose when we were talking about, like, okay, you're based in Spain, so who do you have working for you? Like,
sure.
How big is your group, and where do they all come from? And he's like, oh yeah, no, they come from everywhere. Like, it's great.
Well, they don't have ITAR to deal with.
Right. So it's like,
so he can hire them anywhere. Yeah.
We just have everybody. And it was like, oh,
they can't redacted.
Yeah. Lol. Yeah. So no, it's also really great to have companies like that. If you are not getting hired, in the U.S. for any myriad of reasons, maybe start looking outside the U.S. because they don't have those kinds of restrictions. Yeah. Thank you. That's the word I want. Mm-hmm. All right. Next comment comes off of YouTube. This one comes from Philip Dom. Says, I love the insight you guys have into all these companies, not just about what they do, but who they are and their philosophy. As someone with a silly dream to one day work in the industry, I would love to see more of these and maybe a space pod comparing the innovations and motivations behind these companies, the things that are usually so obscured behind a logo.
Not a silly dream. Here's the thing.
Not a silly dream.
No.
And that's what we've all been saying. That's what we've been trying to say.
Space touches everyone and everything. And because of that, as humanity steps out and increases its footprint into the solar system, we're going to need one of everyone up there. We need chefs, we need janitors, we need engineers, we need everything you can think of down here. We need miners, people
mining.
Mining, like Armageddon. Yeah,
miners,
exactly.
not miners.
Miners, not miners. Exactly.
Yeah.
Miners, not miners. I'm excited to see how the transcriptionist deals with that segment right there. But we need all of these people living and working in space. So not only is it not a silly dream to say I want to work for one of these aerospace companies, they're going to need you. They're going to need everyone who watches this show.
They want you.
They're going to. Now may not be the right timing because now they need a very specific type of person to get them to where they need to get to. But once we're living and working in space and that's the norm, like that's not it's not 6 people in space. It's the Cislunar 1000 plan. It's 1,000 people in space, and then 10,000 people in space, and then 100,000, so forth and so on. Once that happens, everyone I think will be highly sought after. But if you focus on everyone's good at something. If you focus on what you're good at and give it a space bend, I have little doubt that you will be highly sought after sought after when that
This
is
is
needed.
in 3223.7 in the chat room says, how about psychotherapists?
Yeah, well,
Yes!
yeah, especially in space. Yeah, but that's probably gonna be one of the first professions needed in space because it gets
Deep
so
space
lonely.
especially.
Keep everybody calm.
So lonely.
And what was on that end? I have people on Instagram asking me all the time, like, I want to work for NASA. What should I study? And I basically just tell them, like, study what you're passionate about and just apply it to. There's so many fields, even at NASA and other private companies. Just study what you're passionate about and then apply it to that, like you were saying. And yeah, I mean, it's just so open.
And there's a lot more than just NASA too. NASA is one place that's trying to go out there and go to the stars, but there are a lot of private companies who want to do this now as well. So many more so than before. Even like the spacesuits, that's a private company. Orbital Outfitters is a private company.
Yeah.
And they need seamstresses. Seamstresses. Once again, I encourage you to turn on the captioning to see how they dealt with that.
But much like Loretta was saying, like sometimes I think that my dream job isn't even something that's been invented yet. Maybe that's exactly the way it is, and you should just continue to follow your passion, whatever that is, and then just adhere in space. It's fine. Pigs in space is great. Okay, just continue to go along the path that interests you most, that you're most passionate about, and then just tack on in space at the end. It's fine.
I think Smasher's comment
I still don't know if there's a job for a genuine fake astronaut. Like, I'm still trying that, so I'll be your poster boy as far as like seeing if you can just make up a job and have it.
Let's be fair. In what was it? Not Brazil. There's a country in South America that currently hires people to dress up as zebras, fake zebras, right, to help people cross the street. So. Right. I don't see why a fake astronaut wouldn't be necessary still.
Right.
Just saying. Not saying.
It's needed for the inspiration, that's for sure.
Exactly.
So,
I think Smasher's comment is funny. It says, psychologist, # safe space.
Zinger!
Well,
hey, that's a good one.
Be here all night.
Witty.
Then Citizen says, I can do therapy with sitting people. I can certainly do it with floating. Yes, exactly.
All right, next up.
Last comment comes off of YouTube. This one comes from...
I just realized, by the way, I think I made everyone upset with my shuttle comment, and then I made everyone with my last, there's a job for everyone in space. So I think everyone, has this love-hate relationship of me right now.
That sounds about right.
So do we. It's fine.
Yeah, that's how it works.
The general consensus.
So,
no, but yes, but no!
Shut up, Ben. Preach!
Thank you. Oh, goodness.
This is why you love the show. All right.
This comes from Nightlight ABCD off of YouTube. Says, great show as always. The idea of floating on the edge of space and seeing the curvature of the Earth in a safe environment is really awesome. Love the show and keep the great interviews coming. Years from now, as these space pioneers have greater success and accomplishments, hopefully you'll have the interviews in your archives of how they were and what they were doing years before. History's being made on every show. Aww. Thanks.
You know what's interesting is I get pushback from some people who work for a 4-letter acronym space agency of sorts because we have a lot of people on the show who there is a very high probability that they will not succeed. They just won't.
Sure.
But there are a lot of people who will as well, and they kind of get sick of but they're not going to do anything, so why am I listening to them? The thing is, they may not, but they might. You can't count everyone out yet, and so I am very excited for the little guy who actually does succeed and does make it and was on the show, and we have one of their first interviews. That will absolutely happen, probably more than once, and I'm really excited to have that go back 20 years in the future, then go back to these episodes and pull those first things and see how it differs and what their plan was and their vision and their passion, how it changed, because it will definitely change. You'll have to alter course to compensate for something. But I'm excited for that. I'm excited to share all of that with you guys because I think that's what makes this interesting.
And let's be fair, honestly, if they really aren't going to do anything and they have no idea what their thing is that they're trying to sell to us anyway,
we don't bring them on the show.
That's not entirely true. We have, and that makes for a hilarious interview.
Okay, we don't bring them on the show anymore. We haven't done that since we switched over to tomorrow, I think.
This is true.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Who knows? Maybe that guy you had on a couple weeks ago, Tory Bruno, he has that ULA.
He's got some potential, that guy.
Possibly. I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe. Who knows?
I believe in him. I think he could do it.
That's because you got the mohawk bonding, that's why.
Yeah, because we're hair brothers.
All right, we're hair brothers. That's our show. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching. Next week, speaking of little companies that might be able to do something neat in the future, we have got George Whitesides, the CEO of Virgin Galactic and Virgin Orbit, coming on. That's an interesting last name. I feel like
Orbit.
I feel like we just
had a...
Did we...
Somebody.
Kind of weird. Anyhow,
yeah, we'll figure it out.
For those of you watching live, After Dark is up next. For everyone else, it'll be available in 4 weeks unless you're a Patreon subscriber at the suborbital level or above. Thank you so much for watching. See you next week.